And welcome back to This Week in Pro Football here on JAKIB Sports. Pat Callahan joining you in the lull before the ball here, before we get to Super Bowl 57, Philadelphia hosting. I guess they are the host team, the Kansas City Chiefs. And we can bring on right now an alumnus of both teams, a gentleman who was a big star here in Philadelphia and an icon here in the city, and also the purveyor, the owner of Honey Run Golf Club, Ramblewood, Downingtown, Blue Heron Pines. Really good golfer. That's Ron Jaworski. Ron, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Pat. Great to be with you. And nice of you to mention I played for both the Chiefs as well as the Eagles. So I'm going to be a winner next weekend either way.
That is true. That is true. And I guess you probably still stay in touch with guys like Carl Peterson, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You know, Carl Peterson, of course, Dick Vermeil was there. Herman Edwards was there.
Yeah.
You know, Andy Reid and I still probably text every 2 or 3 weeks. We stay in touch all the time.
Yeah.
A lot of good friends in that team. You know, Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, he spends a lot of time down the Jersey Shore. He's a Philadelphia guy.
Yeah.
I stay close to a lot of those guys, like I do with a number of players and coaches and administrators around the NFL.
It's funny, Ron, the Eagles have played the Chiefs the fewest amount of times of any non-expansion team in the NFL. They only played them 9 times, and yet you just rattled off a half dozen guys who are pretty famous in the NFL that have played for both teams.
Yeah. Well, not only from a player's and coach's perspective, you know, Mark Donovan, the president of the Chiefs, cut his teeth here in Philadelphia. You know, with Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Reach. There's all kinds of personal connections in this game.
Yeah. So, Ron, let me start you off here. I want you to look back for me just 1 week. A couple of things I wanted you to touch on relative to the Eagles' 31-7 win over San Francisco. That is Jalen Hurts, 15 of 25, 121 yards passing. Now, I know the Eagles did not need to light up the air with footballs in order to win that game. But do you have any concerns, including Hurts's that lingering shoulder injury at this point?
Yes, I do. And I made some of my observations doing the post-game show on NBC Sportsnet after the game. They didn't need him. And that's a great point you made, Pat. They didn't need him in this game. They're going to need him next Sunday. There's no question. The Chiefs are going to score some points. The Eagles offense must move the football. And there were some throws that caused me pause. So there were a few throws out in the flat that lost their energy in the flat and didn't get the receivers on time or force them to stop and slow down and catch the football. The backs of the backfield in particular. There's a deep throw to A.J. Brown. He won. A.J. Brown had separation. It should have been a ball that was lofted higher in the air, out in the box, and let A.J. He threw it way too flat. I could almost see him laboring to throw that ball. Yeah. He's been making that throw in his sleep all year long. So there were a couple things that caused me to worry a little bit in the game.
Yep, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if there's something has to be done on that shoulder after the season's over, Ron. But you're right about that. That concerned me too. But the Eagles ran the ball 44 times, only for 3.4 yards. But their running game still looks very strong. And now they go against a team not nearly as good as San Francisco against the run.
Yeah, that'll be the difference in this ball game. The Eagles' offensive line, which is the best in the National Football League. When you look at 3 All-Pros and a couple of alternates, no one's even close to the talent they have in that offensive line. It's one of those areas where I have to give Howie Roseman a lot of credit. Ever since he's been in position of making draft choices with the Eagles, he has built this team with offensive and defensive linemen. Those guys that play with their hand in the ground are most important to Howie Roseman. And quarterbacks love it, and running backs love it. So that's going to be the advantage. You know, sometimes throughout the season, I got a little, I'll say, not perturbed, maybe disturbed. They got away from the running game. And when you have the best running attack, sometimes you get enamored with that shiny little toy, the fast wide receivers, Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert and A.J. Brown. We got these guys. Let's get them the ball in explosive plays. If you let this offensive line take over the game, Pat, we will win against Kansas City in the Super Bowl. The offensive line will be the difference.
You are exactly right. And you know what? You don't have to look back further than a week, too. I think the Bengals, as an example, against Kansas City, totally went away from they didn't run the ball the entire game, Ron. And yet, I mean, they're good. Joe Mixon's a good running back. He's a good player. I mean, Cincinnati didn't get there just by throwing the ball. And yet, you're right. Some teams, they have a tendency to just put the ball in the air and see what happens. I think the Rams do the same thing.
Well, I always use the B word. I call it balance. Yeah. Always think of the B word. You got to have balance on offense to keep defenses, really off schedule. Defenses want to play in a known situation. Second and long, third and long. Oh, that's they can turn it loose. You make them have to respect the run every single play. And I'll go back as a name dropper here. When Vermeil left the Rams, Mike Martz took over the team. They should have won 2 Super Bowls in a row, the Rams. Mike Martz in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. The Patriots played nickel defense that entire game. Turn around and give the ball to Marshall Faulk. But Mike Martz wouldn't do it. And I know that there were players in that team that I know that told me after the game, Mike Martz said, we're going to win this damn game my way.
That's correct.
And you can't let your ego get in the way. Play to the strength of your football team.
I know.
They end up losing that game because of his obstinance.
You're right about that. And, as a diehard Rams fan, and I know you came to the Rams out of Youngstown State, a number 2 pick, and should have stayed there. The Eagles stole you for Charlie Young. But just 2 weeks prior to that Super Bowl you just mentioned, the Rams beat the Eagles by doing exactly what you just said. In the second half, Marshall Faulk won that game. But so you're right.
And Pat, the big explosive plays then come off the play action fakes. When you force those safeties and linebackers to get nosy, get up in that line of scrimmage, they want to make plays. We got to stop the run. We got to load the box. That gives you big spaces in the secondary. That's where the big plays come. So, and I know some teams have a different philosophy. We're going to throw it first. And, when you look at it, that's what the Dallas Cowboys did in the 90s. They were very effective with it. I'm not going to denigrate that. They ran the ball early. Threw the ball early, got the lead, then pounded it with Emmitt Smith. But I think the way the game has changed, it's so much different that teams, because it's easier to throw the football with all the rules, teams are keeping more players back. So if they're going to give you a light box, run against it.
I know. Now, of course, the Eagles are playing a team Sunday, Ron, that has this guy number 15, who I think just breaks all the molds. I mean, this guy is an extraordinary quarterback. I'd like you to give me your thoughts on him, and also between him and Andy Reid, the schemes that they can come up with because of what they got there. I mean, what do the Eagles have to be prepared for here? What should they be preparing for?
A lot. When you look at the evolution of Andy Reid, boy, he loves those toys, doesn't he? He just loves to have, not only 3 receivers in the field, but he'll rotate those 3. He'll end up playing 5, 6, even 7 wide receivers every game. Now, this season, because we've had a lot of injuries, he's had to play more wide receivers. And that could be a factor in this game as well, how healthy will the Chiefs' wide receiving core be. But Andy has become much more of a creative head coach and offense, because he's still involved very much with the offense. And he runs the shovel pass in more ways than I could write down in about an hour. He just loves being creative. The guys, love playing for him. But let's get real here. You can only do that when you got a guy like Patrick Mahomes. The guy has just amazing arm talent. He's obviously playing with the high ankle sprain. He's a fierce competitor. The guys in that team love him. And I always go back to how Andy Reid brought him along. Remember his rookie year, Patrick Mahomes did not play. Alex Smith was the quarterback. To me, that's the way you bring a quarterback up. Let him play behind a veteran a year. Let him learn the system. So when he goes on that field as a starting quarterback, he is much more prepared, and the learning process is accelerated. And I think because of that, Andy is able to give him a lot more in the game plan and in the playbook every single year.
Yeah. He's an extraordinary talent, Mahomes, and he's got a rocket arm. But for God's sake, Ron, do you, like me, look at your TV set, whoever's playing the Chiefs, and at some point in the game, don't you find yourself saying, why don't you double cover number 87? Sometimes isn't it extraordinary, Ron? Many people could name 3 other Kansas City Chief receivers, but this guy catches 15 balls a game, and he's seemingly wide open on half of them.
Pat, breaking news here. They do double cover him.
Oh, God. Yeah.
He's that good. And he's really not, as we would say, a tight end. By the way, they don't like to be called tight ends because they don't get up as much as the wide receivers when it comes payday. Right. They like to be called wide receivers. And that's really what Kelsey is. He's big, he's strong, got great hands, great route runner, speed out of the break. He's got everything you would want, and I think our guy Dallas Goedert's pretty solid as well. But he's no Jason. Kelsey's the first ballot. Jason Kelsey. I got the Kelseys mixed up right now, right?
Yeah.
But when you look at what he can do, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and you can double cover. He's still going to find a way to win.
That's what he does. All right, talking with Ron Jaworski here from NBC Sports Philadelphia. And by the way, Ron, that silent auction, I wanted to mention that, the Ditka and Jules silent auction. That's something you do every year, right?
Yeah, I do. Coach Ditka and I and Brian Urlacher this year have done a cigar party at the Super Bowl for the last 12 years. And We raise about $500,000 every time we run the event, and half the money goes to Gridiron Greats, which are former players in dire need, and half of it goes to the Jaws Youth Playbook, which is my foundation and helps at-risk kids in our community. So we'll have about 1,500 of my best friends will be at the cigar party on Thursday night. So it's always a fun night to kick off the Super Bowl.
All right. Well, how do they? Can anybody reach in, or can anybody bid on these items?
Oh yeah, go to Ditka Jaws Cigars. It'll come right up.
All right, there you go. Everybody, make sure you
make
do
it. A lot of good stuff there to bid on. Even if you can't make it to the cigar party, which if you're in Arizona, you need to go to. It's the who's who of A-listers to start off the Super Bowl week on Thursday night. So I call in all my markers on that one, Pat.
All right, I wanted to ask you too now, Ron, about now switching to the Eagles quarterback. He's a young guy, Jalen Hurts. I mean, he's not even 25 years old yet. And here he is in a Super Bowl. What advice would you, as a guy who also went down there for a Super Bowl and went through that whole week, and you were in New Orleans, which is not exactly a retirement community, what advice are you going to offer a guy like Jalen Hurts to keep himself focused and to try and shut out all the noise?
You're not going to win the game in one play or in one quarter. You have to let the game come to you. And as we know, in most situations, mistake-free football wins. You can't make mistakes early in the game to give the other team momentum. So kind of take a deep breath. Don't try to make every play. Sometimes, a punt is okay. You just have to approach the game that way because of, as you just said, the attention to this game is through the roof right now.
Right.
And the tension, the pressure, on the quarterback in this position, is remarkable. I mean, and we got two of the best young quarterbacks in the league right now, in Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. But, if I get a chance to see him, and I spoke to him throughout the season and training camp earlier this year, it's, hey, just be calm, be relaxed. And this kid there's a picture of him. There's a picture of him in a dictionary by the word calm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how cool and collected he is. I love that part about him. So I don't think his demeanor will change in the game. But sometimes, you just don't know what's in someone's belly or in their mind when the game was going on, especially a game of this magnitude, Pat.
That's right. That's right. I mean, Ed, you just give an example of the people watching here. By the time you walked up to the line of scrimmage for that first snap against the Raiders, I mean, could you even think straight at that point, or were you able to get yourself properly channeled?
Yeah, I felt we were all in. There's a lot is said after the game when you lose the game. Oh, you guys were tight, and my first pass was intercepted, and it was a mistake on my part.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I said. The play wasn't there to be made. Right. I was trying to throw to John Spagnuolo on a sail route. I had Luke Montgomery in the flat. I should have taken the flat. Right. I tried to make the big play, And sometimes just let the game come to you and manage the game. And by the way, that's where Jalen Hurts has really been great.
Right.
And I call him the field general. I thought last week in San Francisco, he as you start out the show, he didn't have a great game, but he didn't make mistakes. Right. He managed the game. Right. He didn't have to throw it 50 times. He got him into good offensive plays with the running game. So he knew the way the game was going. So he said, hey, I can be calm here. I don't have to make plays. Just be the field general.
Now, Sal Powell's been saying that all year long on this show, Ron, that and again, last Sunday, Eagles, no turnovers. San Francisco, 3. So that's right. That goes a long way towards.
Pat, I whenever I do my Eagles pre and post game show with NBC Sports, I talk about turnovers. Since I came in the league in 1973, that's a long time ago, Pat. This is the only stat that is held true. The turnover stat. Man. If you're +1 or better, you win 77% of the time. +1 or better, you win. What stat can be that telling? In other words, if you're -1 or worse, you lose 70%, 77% of the time. So you got to take care of the damn football.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, came into the league in 73 and you look that good. For God's sake, I tell you, there must be a portrait of you.
I appreciate that, Pat. Thank you.
God's sake. All right, well, listen, Ron, I really appreciate you taking all this time. It was great having you on. And please, everybody, get to that. Ditka Jaws, you said, right?
Ditka Jaws cigars. You can get
cigars. And I was out in Los Angeles last year, but I didn't get there till Friday. I'd have been smoking.
You missed a good time.
I know. I know.
We have every cigar manufacturer on the planet there. So they really support my event. They're all great. They donate so we can raise money for the kids.
All right. Well, that's great, Ron. I appreciate you taking this time very much. Wish you all the best with the golf courses and everything else you're doing. And we look forward to seeing you on NBC Sports Philly. All right?
You're the best, Pat. Great to be with
Ron.
you.
Thank you very much. The great Ron Jaworski joining me there. And we got another great guy coming up. So don't anybody touch that dial. The great Sal Palantonio is going to be joining me. We're going to talk about, obviously, Super Bowl 57. Jerry Jones had some odd comments today. I want to get Sal's take on that. And, of course, the retirement of Tom Brady. Lots to talk to Sal about. We'll do it next on This Week in Pro Football.